Hello, my name is Caluã de Lacerda Pataca. I'm a student affiliated with the Center for Accessibility and Inclusion Research at the Rochester Institute of Technology. I'm going to present the paper Visualization of Speech, Prosody, and Emotion in Captions, Accessibility for Deaf and Hard-of-Hearing Users. Automatic speech recognition systems have come a long way over the past few years, thanks to advancements in machine learning and natural language processing. As a result, and despite remaining technical shortcomings, automatic captions have become a commonplace technology, helping to make video content more accessible to a wider audience. Despite these technological improvements, however, the visual design of captions has seen little change since their introduction in the late 1970s. Captions are still predominantly displayed as white text on a black background, frequently still in uppercase letters. Speech, though, is a dynamic and expressive medium. Its subtle inflections and nuances help convey many layers of meaning beyond just its words: highlights, emotions, moods, sarcasm, etc. None of this is reflected by how captions represent words, flattening how a speaker's voice can make their utterances expressive. But does this matter? While issues like latency, word error, and caption occlusion have been shown to influence the experience of deaf and hard-of-hearing users of video conferencing systems, little has been said about how missing paralinguistic elements can affect these users. Our first study, then, aimed at investigating whether this distance between spoken speech's expressiveness and captions' flat visual style is, or isn't, a significant issue, particularly from the point of view of deaf and hard-of-hearing individuals who may depend on captions for communication. To do so, we conducted in-depth, semi-structured interviews with 8 deaf and hard-of-hearing individuals about their experiences with online meeting settings with hearing colleagues from work or school. These interviews were conducted by a native ASL speaker and lasted up to 70 minutes. One key finding, in line with the literature, is that video conferencing is, in general, a challenging setting for deaf and hard-of-hearing individuals. Captions are often delayed, and errors in their transcription are not uncommon. This is enough to make communication challenging. However, even if captions work well and are able to correctly transcribe and show what people are saying, our participants mentioned that they can make words seem dull or hard to follow. This can make it difficult for people to know what the speaker really means. For example, many interviewees mentioned that they often fail to catch jokes because they don't realize that the speaker is making a humorous remark, not to be taken seriously. Irony and sarcasm aren't shown in captions, so it is only when they notice others laughing that they realize that what was said shouldn't have been taken literally. Subjects talked about ways they use to deal with the unclear nature of captions, such as closely watching the speaker's body language and facial expressions. These methods are not perfect though, and in failing, they often make the interviewees feel excluded or unaware of what's happening. During the interview, our participants were open to the idea that captions could have some sort of visual cue depicting subjective dimensions of speech. However, different participants had different ideas about what exactly these cues should reflect. Some people thought they could show how words sound with dimensions like the tone of voice. Others thought captions could mimic how a speaker's emotions and feelings change throughout the conversation. Focusing on this issue, we ran a second study aimed at investigating which aspects of speech should be represented in captions. We wanted to see if it would be easier to understand a speaker's emotions, moods, and emphasize words when the visual design of captions depicted that speaker's prosody, emotions, or both at the same time. We presented 4 caption styles: a baseline condition with the conventional caption design, a prosodic condition which depicted loudness, pitch, and duration extracted from a speaker's voice, an affective style representing emotions extracted with the machine learning model from speech, and a 4th condition that had both prosody and emotions. The baseline condition had captions styled as they typically are in everyday applications. One detail to note, however, is that in this condition, as in the other 3, we had scrolling captions, i.e. one word showing up at a time, as one would expect to see if the captions were generated by an automatic speech recognition system. We used different approaches to extract prosody and emotion from speech. To obtain prosody, which includes features such as loudness, pitch, and duration, we used acoustic measurements taken from the raw sound signal. These acoustic features were obtained at a per-word level. Each measured value was mapped to a specific typographic modulation, which was then combined to form the whole modulated word. The exact mapping between sounds and typography, along with the normalization algorithm, was inspired by previous research on speech-modulated typography. The second proposed model depicted emotions extracted from speech using a transformer-based neural network. The emotions were defined through the features of valence and arousal as per the circumflex model. In it, valence is related to the polarity of an emotion and can take positive, neutral, or negative values. Arousal is related to the intensity of that emotion and can have calm, neutral, or excited values. To the best of our knowledge, there isn't prior work that specifically explores the representation of emotion as per the circumflex model through typographic modulations. We thus extrapolated the use of color and size from studies in tangential areas such as data visualization. A fourth condition consisted of combining the modulations of both the prosodic and affective caption styles. The experiment involved 16 deaf and hard-of-hearing individuals who participated in a within-subject study. Each participant judged 8 videos, 2 for each condition. The videos were of individuals looking at the camera and retelling personal stories, not unlike what could be experienced in a typical video conferencing setting. Regarding the effectiveness of conventional captions, participants had mixed responses when asked if they were helpful in understanding the speaker's emotions, moods, and emphasized words. Some found them helpful, while others did not, with no clear pattern emerging. When considering prosodic captions, there was no clear indication that they were helpful in representing emotions. They scored better than conventional captions at representing emphasis, but this result was not significant. The conditions with affective captions, either with emotions only or emotions alongside prosody, significantly outperformed conventional captions in helping participants understand the speaker's emotions and highlighted words. However, the greatest effect was observed with captions that had only affective cues. These captions were effective in representing both emotions and highlighted words, outperforming conventional and prosodic captions. One possible explanation for prosodic captions' low performance may be found in how participants responded to a question about how easy to read each caption style was. Participants struggled with the styles that had prosodic cues, regardless of the presence of affective cues. Participants' open-ended comments made at the end of the video portion of the experiment also shed light on their experiences with the new caption styles. Some found them harder to read than conventional captions, with prosodic captions in particular singled out as too wild and busy. However, despite this, the new caption styles, particularly the ones with affective cues, were thought to make the speaker's emotions in speech clearer. One participant, for example, suggested that this could reduce misunderstandings when they chatted with their hearing friends. Additionally, some participants noted that the new styles made the stories told in the videos more engaging than those with traditional captions. Overall, the results suggest that while prosody-based speech-modulated typography may be promising when used with hearing individuals, as has been shown by prior work, the same may not apply to its use with deaf and hard-of-hearing people. The limited benefit it provides in terms of communicating paralinguistic dimensions of speech seems to be overshadowed by its negative impact on legibility. On the other hand, we found that captions with affective cues effectively communicated both the speaker's emotions and emphasized words. These captions showed little perceived loss of legibility, making them a promising candidate for future studies on speech accessibility through captions. In conclusion, our study explored how deaf and hard-of-hearing individuals experienced captioned speech, specifically in video conferencing settings. Captions are sometimes ambiguous or dull, perhaps due to the fact that they do not include prosodic and affective dimensions of speech. We found that using typographic modulations to express these dimensions is a promising approach to bridging the gap between spoken speech and written text. Affective cues in particular can represent both highlighted words and the emotional state of the speaker with little loss of legibility. Please reach out if you have any comments or questions. I can be found at the links below. Thank you for watching.